Bob Mimless here at Vex Worlds talking to the Robobucks. As we were talking about your robot, I found out that software changed the way your robot looks.
Yes.
Did software change the way you built the robot? Do you have to understand software to build a robot?
I understand software. I had to learn because I need to be able to make the robot able so she can program it.
How did driving the robot change the software? Because I don't understand. You're driving, what do you need software for?
So we need it programmed so that it will do what the remote wants it to. Because without our wonderful coder, our robot wouldn't even work, it wouldn't drive. That's where teamwork really comes in. How she programs it makes the controller different, and it makes me more comfortable when I tell her to make certain buttons do certain things.
You're telling the coder what you want the robot to do. She writes, How long does it take her to write code and come back and make it do what you want? Hours?
Yeah, so we had our beginning code, like it was able to go forward and backwards, but then we needed to help each other code how the back clamp would work, the front clamp would work, the pistons would work, the pneumatics, really every aspect of it.
That sounds like a lot of work. Was it fun?
Yeah, I think it was really fun.
Can you just describe the progress that you've made in terms of coding from where you were 6, 8, 9 months ago, and essentially how the engineering notebook allowed you to develop that amongst your entire team?
We started in the summer, so for the first month, 2 months, we didn't actually do any coding. We just talked about the math, the theory behind it, and how it would help us. And then afterwards, we would start, spend 2 weeks just talking about how we would structure our code, just so that once we do get into coding, the code does not get really messy, and we still stay on track. And then eventually, we would start handing out tasks to each programmer. This programmer will do this part of that, etc., etc. And so then eventually, by provincials, you will have a completed library, and you will actually be able to write a route. This year was especially challenging for us programmers because we tried to create a completely new system and code in a completely different style. So something we tried to use was odometry, which is basically using wheels on our robot, and while the robot moves, those wheels will spin, and using math and calculations, we are able to position the robot and know its coordinates and angle at all times.
So you're going to know where the robot is on the field.
Yeah, we also have multiple programmers, so we have to keep everybody updated. Somebody works on one part, other people work on other parts, so we have to document, and also there's also a lot of math, so we have to keep track of that so that future programmers, future teammates, they can just read through it and if they have any questions. So it's a lot more time saving as well.
What's great about that is our office is where we make Vex code. So we have a lot of the software developers that make Vex code, and that's something that we do a lot also is document the processes so that as we bring new people on board or as we're trying to train new people, they're able to do that.
With our code, what we did is we have separate functions. For example, for autonomous, we have some certain functions that are sort of used in every single program. So that makes it a lot easier because if you want to change one thing, you just change it in one place and it modifies it for everything.
Did you have any experience coding before you were on the robotics team?
I had done some prior simple 30 days of coding type things that were moving things around, that kind of simple things, but I had never actually worked with sensors, worked with motors and that kind of stuff. So working with that with Vex was super easy because the curriculum and being able to use accessible blocks to start out to create programs to move my robot, just being able to drag one block and be able to make the robot move was super amazing and super rewarding.
Talk to me how you transitioned from coding a robot to now actually studying software and computer science and how that process went.
Yeah, so coding the robot was a lot more physical, which helped me really get down to those basics and be able to know and understand how things worked, and then moving into software and moving into web development, being able to implement it where maybe you might not be able to see what you're working on. To have those building blocks that really were something that I could see visually was super helpful.
So what advice would you give a student that's thinking, I'm thinking about doing something like joining a robotics team, but I'm a little bit hesitant, I'm a little bit unsure of myself. What advice would you give them?
I think the process of learning is very difficult. I struggle with myself, feeling like I messed up. And so being okay.
We're always our toughest critic.
Being okay with making mistakes is a huge thing that I learned in robotics. Iterating over your programs and keeping at it is what really gives you the reward.
That's right. There's this thing as failure, just feedback, right?
Yes.